Welcome, Hot Nerd family. Welcome back to the Hot Nerd Network. I'm Cheryl Parker, and I'm joined here today by my husband, Phil Parker, and my cousin, Carlos Brown. And we are here today to talk about a recap of Equalizer 1 and 2 in preparation for the premiere of Equalizer 3 on September 1. So, if you enjoy the episodes here at the Hot Nerd Network, please remember to subscribe and like. And please come back because we have a lot more content that we are sharing and that we've already put up on our network. So, with that being said, I'm going to move into talking about the overall segments that we're going to cover. So, we're going to basically go over the first segment is going to be about the captivating history of the Equalizer universe. And then we're going to be talking about themes of the symbolism and those juicy underlying messages that kind of give the profile of the character himself. And we're just going to give you an overview of the Equalizer platform, I would say, because the Equalizer started years ago with a show. I want to say it was back in the late 80s. Might have been a little later than that, but I used to watch the Equalizer show with my mom and I loved it. It was with a British actor, Edward Woodward, I believe his name was. And my mom used to love to watch this gentleman just do his thing. He had a sharp suit on and he would just go and just save the day for everyone. So I thought it was really interesting years later when Denzel Washington, after we had this British actor, Denzel Washington comes and he serves in that role as well. And then now we've come full circle and we have Queen Latifah serving in the role as a woman on TV. So I just feel like we've given all different angles of what an equalizer can be. I kind of look at it like a James Bond sort of, a Black James Bond at this point, especially since the first actor who did it was British. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go into just kind of just talking about the history of the equalizer. So we're going to discuss the concepts of the equalizer, the vigilante, the of the figure, how he helps others, saves the day. We're going to go over some symbolisms. I want to talk about like the empowerment of how the role is in helping those who are less fortunate. There's so much symbolism in the movies. Carlos and I were discussing right before we started that we watched these movies so many times, and I watched it so many years ago, and here we are now. We see all these things that we didn't see before. So we're going to talk about some of the symbolism and then the connections to broader real world issues. And so my first thing that I want to jump into, I was excited about doing this with you, Carlos, because you are a huge Denzel Washington fan. And I laughed because when we were together a couple of weeks ago, I was like, well, I haven't seen one of his movies. And you're like, you're not a real fan.
You're not
so I said, so I still have to watch that movie. So I can't put myself back into the fan club yet, but I will get back into the fan club. But I was curious to know if you knew anything about the director of The Equalizer 2. Do you know the director, Antoine Fuqua? Do you know his work?
I listen. What I know, I know that he loves Denzel, obviously, but who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Really, I know him from Training Day. Antoine Fuqua
Yes.
is the Training Day director.
Yes.
So that's how I know him. I know he's done other great work since then, but you know what you just said. I'll take a step back, and we watch these movies for entertainment, and they entertain us for 2 hours, right?
Yes.
When you prepare to be a hot nerd like you guys are, you got to prepare for that, right?
Yes.
Yes.
No shade, no shade.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
No.
So not sitting down, I'm actually looking at things. I'm nerdy. When you ask me to do this, I'm nerdy. So I'm taking notes. I'm like, I miss so much, right? You miss so much.
Yeah.
Not, when you're just being entertained, but when you sit back, that's why I have to watch movies several times to pick those things up. But now I'm going to start looking at them intentionally in that first 2-hour period, so you do catch these things. But I do know the connection between Denzel and Antoine Fuqua has produced Denzel's first Oscar, which he
Yes.
should have had one well before that, but he did help.
Thank you. Thank
Mhm,
you.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I just wasn't sure if you knew that when I read that, because I did do some research and I read that. I was like, oh my gosh, he did Training Day. And he had other works that he did that I didn't know he did.
Yeah.
Like he did, I love the whole Gerard Butler series with London Has Fallen, Olympus Has Fallen, and he did Olympus Has Fallen, and I had no clue.
Oh, that's him
Um,
too. I didn't even know.
yeah, he didn't do the others, but at least he was listed as a director of that
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
Plus, he is the executive producer, Phil. I don't know if you knew this. He's an executive producer of The Mayor of Easttown.
Oh,
The
wow.
show we
Yeah,
like
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah. The one,
Taylor
yeah.
Sheridan,
Hmm.
and he's done The Resident, which I love. It's a medical show. It was just things I learned about him that I was just so tickled to learn about this Black director that I don't know if people are aware that he's had all of this work that he's done. So I thought it was really cool to just kind of, this has kind of educated me on that piece. So I wanted to make sure I shared that. But of course, you did know he did Training Day.
Absolutely. Gotta know Training Day. I'm looking at a couple of them here really quick. He's the Magnificent Seven, another Denzel.
Yes, another Denzel movie.
Um,
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Emancipation. I knew he had done something new that I watched because I do pay attention a little bit, and he did
Hmm.
Emancipation with Will Smith.
Yes. I was just amazed
Yeah,
by his character.
he's fantastic.
So yeah, it's really pretty amazing. So the other thing I wanted to ask you all about was some of the themes. I don't know, of course, my kids and I'm big book lover, and I know that Carlos, you and Phil have really been reading a lot in regards to just kind of understanding the history of our country and just of our people, etc.
Sure.
But this book, I don't know if you recognized it, but there were so many symbolisms to books.
Hmm.
Did you catch that? I mean, from the very beginning. So I became very fascinated out of all the times that I watched it to see, okay, where are those books? I know Phil kept seeing me pause. I was trying to get the names of the books
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
and even the books themselves, they were symbolic to
Hmm.
different segments.
Yeah.
So in the first scene with Denzel and Equalizer one and the young lady, I think her name was Alina,
Elena.
and they were talking about the old man and the sea,
Yep.
and that whole little segment about the story of the book.
Yes.
And they have several scenes where they talk about this thing with the fish, right? And
Hmm.
then in that last scene about that book, it was poignant, him explaining about how the old man met his adversary in the fish. He
Yes.
basically was telling his whole story of his character,
Hmm.
it just kind of one of the lines I had written down here is, you got to be who you are in this world,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because
definitely.
he was really struggling, right, about trying not to get back into who he was as a black ops person.
Hmm.
It was kind of implied that he felt he wanted to be what his wife wanted him to be, and
Right.
I guess the nice guy, right, just the kind of settled regular person, and he didn't want to go into doing the things that he did. But
Hmm.
like he said, you got to be who you are in this world. So it was really interesting to see him kind of go back to being who he really was. So I don't know your thoughts on that. How did you kind of take some of the symbolism in the books?
Sure. I'll say. Well, you guys know I'm a little simple minded, but
No,
I
you
got an
got it.
anecdote, a
Go
true
for it. Go
story
for it.
about
Yes.
the old man in the sea.
Yeah.
Hmm, hmm,
And
hmm.
Phil may know this guy. So Cheryl, you gave me credit in the fact that I read and I try to pay attention to what's going on in history or
Hmm.
what has gone on in history. That's recent. You
That's
go back
all of us.
to
Yeah.
high
Yeah.
school when you were supposed to read. I did
Hmm.
not, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in 10th grade, that is one. I don't remember all the details of the book, but The Old Man in the Sea was a book that we were assigned in 10th grade at Friendly High School. I don't
Wow.
Yeah.
know if you had this teacher or not, but it
I
was
don't
Mr.
remember.
Ponatowski. Mr.
Hmm.
Ponatowski, he was so interesting, which is why I actually read and did what he asked us to do in the class. So that is my like personal connection to that book that I had no idea was in the movie until I
Hmm.
sat down and studied it in the last
Hmm.
2 days. So, uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's he does go. Denzel does. Excuse me. Robert McCall, the cast,
Yes.
go into the details of the book, and like you said, is that one major quote. It was just saying that the man, he I guess the symbolism is he was trying to catch that fish, right? And
Hmm.
eventually he did, but he ended up like storing the fish on the side of the boat, and the sharks ate the fish.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
appears that the man,
Yes.
at the end of the day, he didn't win what didn't get what he was looking for, right? But
Hmm.
then, Robert McCall explains that he actually did. It's just your perspective on how you end up seeing the vision of that book. So that's why
Yes.
reading is so cool, because you myself and Phil, we can all read the same thing but come up with something different.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just interesting throughout the whole, it's going to be interesting in three how they, if they stay in that same sort of connection with different books that kind of help him relate to different symbolisms in the movie. I just thought it was kind of interesting.
Well, here's the
Um,
thing, though. So really
mhm,
quickly with that,
mhm,
talking about the books, we're talking both 1 and 2. So
mhm.
number 2, there's I can quote the name once I take a look at my notes, but he got, remember, he was trying to read the
The
100 books,
100 books.
the
Yeah.
100 books.
Hmm.
Equalizer 2, he got to the 100th book.
Oh, he did. Okay.
I don't think he got a chance to read it because all of the activities and the things that happen in the movie. And at the end of episode part 2, that same book is at the home, the beach house. I call it the beach house where
Beach House.
McCall
Yeah.
lived, and his wife Vivian, who I think that was her 100th book as well, is sitting on the desk. So
Yes.
I'm not sure if he got to read that. So maybe again, symbolism that leads into Equalizer 3,
3.
which allows him to continue reading books. But he also said, beyond reading the 100 books, he wanted to learn how to sing. I think be a musician.
Oh,
And
yes, because
number
Alina
3,
was. Yeah, Alina was.
exactly.
Hmm.
And his third
Hmm.
thing was to open up a donut factory.
Yes.
Yep.
So
So
maybe he's going to be in Europe opening up some sort of pastry factory. I,
maybe
I feel like it's with the mafia, so maybe he's in there in the patisserie. Who knows?
yes.
Hey, can I? Hey, Carlos, it's
Please.
interesting because I had to read. I tell my children a funny story about reading. So one of the things that I am extremely, what's a good word? Malicious compliance.
Yes.
So when I was assigned to read that book, I could not stand that book at first. So I wrote the best essay I could on that book, and my teacher, I concluded this is the stupidest book I ever read. The man, the fish, he did all that, and the fish ate it at the end. This is the dumbest book ever.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember, and the reason I wrote it that because like I said I'm a malicious complier, and my teacher gave me a C, and she said I have. Excuse me. She gave me a C. She said I have to give you at least a C because I see you put a lot of effort into this book. But how you can say this is a stupid book and all the things.
Yeah, it's just yes. That's not fair, Phil. You did the book report, man, and they didn't like it, so you
She
get
didn't like it, but she
that's
said,
terrible.
she said, begrudgingly, I got to at least give you a C.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Every time I see that book, I digress. But go ahead, Cheryl.
No, I didn't realize you've told me that story a million times, and I didn't realize that was the book. I don't
That
think I
was the
just
book.
connected it just till now that that was the book that you
That
were
was the book.
referring
Yep,
to.
yep,
That
yep,
is
yep.
so funny. That is so funny. No, but yeah, there's more. I can't remember the name. I was trying to find it for you, Carlos. I thought I had written it down, but I know that it's going to come up somewhere in my notes because we talk about there is that book in 2 that
Yeah,
speaks to, and you're right. I didn't even connect. He
yeah.
didn't take that book to the beach house. That was his wife's
That
copy.
was his wife's copy, exactly.
Yes, I did not connect that. So
Yeah,
thank you. I
yeah.
think we're all seeing things from different angles, but
Yeah.
Always. We could
you
watch it
know,
again and see something different, Cheryl.
Every time,
yes.
and it's, as we age, we see it differently. Also, like I said, I took a
Exactly.
teenager saying this is the stupidest book in the world. Now in my 50s, I'm like, okay, this is a very profound book. So
I'm sure
I
it is.
guess
Yeah.
that's what's great about reading is
Yes,
that as you read, there's no book is old to me. I can read if it's a good story, it's a good story, but you look at it through the prism of your experience and age, and
yep,
that helps you along the way.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So now I just thought it would be good to just kind of do an overall recap of the movie, so we can get into some of the fun things. I mean, it was each one and two for me had, of course they had different antagonists, but they at one, I just really thought the one in one, Teddy as the bad guy,
Yeah.
was just he he was just so I can't think of any other term but badass right now. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah,
He's a
he was
psycho,
he
sociopath is
was
what he is.
psycho. That's what it is. He was a psycho. And Phil had said to me when he was watching it, he says, "Oh man, he was bad. I don't know, sure. He was just like really, he was scary." I was like, "Yeah," until he met Robert McCall, and there's some
Exactly.
of those best quotes ever. Um,
Do we get?
Exactly.
Are we getting into the quotes, or
We
is
got to
this?
get
yeah,
into
I
the
Are we
quotes.
jumping? Are you jumping in too fast? And we get into the quotes?
No, we definitely gonna get to the quotes, but
Okay.
I
Okay.
just want to kind of just make sure that we cover the bases. And so in one, it was the story about how he met that young lady, Alina,
Mhm.
and she was a prostitute. She was a Russian prostitute. She was so young. I don't think she was more than 15, maybe.
Right.
And he befriended her over that book, that very first book, The Old Man and the Sea. And then he knew her music and he just befriended this young girl, and I think that was his segment back into being who he was, because he always was that person that he wanted to help others. And he
Mhm.
saw she got into trouble, and no matter how many times he tried to stay out of trouble, he was trying to stay out of it, because
Mhm.
there were several different things that happened that roped him back into helping people. But
Be
that
true.
one
Be
was,
true to
but
yourself.
be true to yourself, that was the one that pulled him over the edge when they beat her up. The hit her I guess pimps, that's the only other word I can think of right now, beat her up,
Yep.
and he found her in the hospital.
Mhm.
And so he took it to another level. So, of course, we go through this whole cycle of him working through the battle that he has with the Russians. There's some other things that happen, but I want to go ahead and just kind of run through
Mhm.
some of the things that have happened segment by segment. So
Mhm.
the first one is, the biggest thing was when he went into, I guess, the pimp's restaurant, and
Oof.
he goes to give the money to them to try to buy her out.
Yep.
That was the beginning of the end for him going back into his old world, his old life. So what are your thoughts about that whole scene, Carlos? What are your thoughts?
Sure. I think we got to go back to a little bit to what leads to that scene, and you touched on some of this,
Oh,
Cheryl.
that's true. That's true.
Right?
Let's do
Only,
that.
only,
Definitely.
only, not the details of it, but the conversations that he was having with Alina, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, absolutely.
you see Denzel in the diner, and they're having conversations across the restaurant, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then finally, she comes over there, essentially invading his space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could
Yes.
tell him he draws back. He's like, "Oh, I'm a little uncomfortable now. Why are you doing this? You were fine over there, right?" But
Yes.
but he was like, "You know what? Go ahead and sit down." And then she sits down and she says something like, "I'm looking at your eyes. There's something about them. I see that you're a little lost." And you can see, this is why Denzel is so great. His bottom lip starts quivering.
Oh
I'm like,
wow!
Wow,
"Oh
I
I
didn't
missed
even
my
that.
see
I
that.
God,
missed that.
what?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm getting chills now, Phil. Here we go. The show is starting. Let's go now." But no, like, so as soon as you see that, and part of that same conversation, she's doing a little digging, trying to figure out what his story is, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
what is it that you're feeling? What are you feeling? And he kind of, gives a little bit. And I think, probably it's when they start talking about the books, and that's why we hear about the 91. He's at 91 out of 100,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's
Mhm.
all a part of that same conversation. And then
Mhm.
it's the same conversation where they get up, and I think they walk out together.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Yes.
getting the buzz for the next John.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And well, actually, it comes from, his name is Slavi, the pimp.
Yes, Slavi. Yeah. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then they walk, and that's where he meets Slavi, and he sees her slap him, and that's when it was on to me.
That's when it was
As
on. You're
soon as
right. That is
as
when it was
soon as,
on. Yes.
soon as the slap happened, oh, now you got the equalizer.
No,
Yeah,
you're right.
but you know, he still tried to keep that path he was not destined to walk. But he still, by walking into the restaurant and trying to buy her freedom, because he's like, okay, let me try one more time. Because you saw right then and there, he could have took them out then, but he's like, no. Let me
You're
wait.
right.
Let me get $9,000 and to bail her out. And
True.
but you
Very
know,
true, Phil.
so to your question of segments, the adage of don't judge a book by its cover, he is antithesis of that, because when you see him, you see this guy buttoned up shirts, pants, belt, very nondescript. He doesn't walk around with this bravado that I'm big bad, karate man or martial art man. I'm just an average Joe. And that's to me is the best weapon that anyone could have, because don't judge a book by cover, because they thought they could take this man out. They totally underestimated him, and he just obliterated them right off the bat.
Yep.
So yeah, that first segment, in just like you said, talking about the roller coaster is on. The roller coaster is on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you did take me back to something. One of the things that I liked about that conversation that they had was how she says, "What's your name?" He says, "My name is Bob." She says, "Oh, you're not a Bob." She says, "You're a Robert who reads books. A Bob, they watch television." I love that. I should have listed that as one of the quotes.
She did say
Because
that,
I love that. So thank you for reminding me of that, because you're right. It was that conversation. It was that transition, because those first two conversations that they showed in the diner, I remember her back was always to him. She never really showed herself. And I think because she was afraid for him to see who she was.
Yeah,
she was embarrassed. And but yeah, thank you, because we needed to see that led up to the battle that was in the not battle, but the incident that happened in the parking lot of the gas station, and his look as they drove off, like, I'm going to go get those guys. And then once he found out that she was, I think the real catalyst that took him to the edge is when he found out she was beat up and she was in the hospital.
Oh, absolutely.
And then he saw her in the hospital. Now it's helping me kind of transition back to, that's when he decided to go take the $9,800, because I loved how it wasn't 10,000, it wasn't $9,800. I just thought that was so funny. What was the significance of $9,800? Because
to me, I think the significance was that's all the money he had.
True.
That's why that's all the money he had.
That's all the money he had. Wow.
That's the significance of, to me. That's how I interpret that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wow. So you were thinking that's like, because I really didn't know. I was thinking he has so much money. Like, he had money probably stored somewhere. We just didn't know. But you're right. Maybe that was all he had. And he was willing to give that up for this young woman. So to save her life. So he was trying to do it the right way, though. As I talked through it, he was trying to do it the right way without hurting them, because he knew that he could take them down. So now let's talk about how he went in to take them down. So, we were in the, he's like, okay, you don't want the $9,800. And I love how he goes to the door and he's like closing the door several times. Like, am I going to do it? Am I going to do it?
My man got OCD.
Yes.
Right? Can we all agree?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
He organized everything. Yeah.
And he can't sleep. He's what's the word?
Insomniac.
Meticulous, regimented, organized, and OCD for sure. When he's banging that door, not only was he like trying not to do what he was about to do, he's just got OCD. Like, one of the things we didn't talk about, he's unwrapping the tea, right?
Yes.
He puts a little tea bag in a tissue. Folds it up perfectly, or it may be a handkerchief, I'm not sure, and he organizes his table. So he did the, I don't know if you saw the tissue, kind of jumping ahead, in Equalizer 2. He did it again.
Go ahead, yeah.
He does. And Equalizer 2. No, he does. And that's something I did have in my notes that I skipped over. So thank you.
Well, actually, there's no such thing. Just let it flow. Go ahead.
Let it flow.
You're right. I'm going to relax. This is my first time. I'm relaxing.
Hey, don't worry about it.
So actually that whole thing about being OCD was Denzel's idea.
Was it?
He felt like he
Oh,
needed to bring something to the character because
Mhm.
the British guy had his own thing for
Mhm.
the Equalizer character. He had his trench coat. He was very kind of suave, swag, kind of like James Bond in New York City, right? But Denzel wanted to bring a different sort of character setup for this role as Robert McCall.
Mhm.
So Robert McCall, in his mind, is very, he's reserved and not a lot of swaggy swag. It's just
Mhm.
he's this regular Joe. And
Yeah.
so he brought that. That was something that Antoine Fuqua said in his notes, that was something that Denzel bought. He says, this is what I think my Robert McCall is going to be. So
Sure.
I thought that
nice.
was a nice little tidbit. Yeah.
That's
So
great. Thank you. I didn't
yeah.
know that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good to know. Exactly. She did
Yeah.
some research, Phil.
Yeah. You know that. You know that.
So yeah, so what are you all's favorites? See, I have like a couple of favorite times in that whole 16. He said 16, but it ended up being 19 seconds. He said he had to
It was
take off the
28. It
20.
was
It
28,
was,
Cheryl.
yeah,
It
it's
was 28.
28
Mm-hmm.
seconds.
I got the math.
Yeah, but he so in that 28 seconds, what were some of your favorite parts of it, or
I,
parts
I
that you
just got
thought were
one. I have one,
significant? Yeah.
Cheryl.
Hmm.
One
Hmm.
one of those is simply this. When he talked to Slavi, and he was like, and Slavi basically lied to him and said, "Yeah, I'll take that $99,000." And then he put his hand out to shake his hand. Denzel looked at him funny, and then he shook his hand. And then
Mhm,
Slavi changed the terms of the deal,
mhm, mhm.
right?
Hmm.
So and I think that was before he went to the
It was.
That was
door. It
before
was
he
It
went to
was.
the
It
before
door.
was.
he went to the
Hmm.
door. So
Hmm.
here's what he did. I'm sure you guys caught that. There's two skulls on Slavi's desk.
Mhm.
Yes. Hmm. There
He
were
turned
actually
one
three.
skull
There
to
were three.
Slavi,
Yeah.
and he turned the second skull to the dude on the left. Oh,
Yeah.
that's what I remember the most. And then after that, it was a done deal.
No, for
what
me,
was
for
what was yours,
me,
Phil? Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
for me is after the carnage is over, and he sits down and just looks at Slavi. He
Mm.
said, "You lost your life for $9,800." And it's like, fuck you, fuck you. All right, die fool. And to me, again, it's just another metaphor for, and I guess that's what's whole theme. Was it really worth it? I mean, I guess in Slavi's world, the arrogance and the power
Mhm.
and the his empire he had, he didn't. That to him, that was an asset he had value in,
Sure.
and so why would he take somebody like Denzel serious?
Mhm.
But at the end, you never know. You don't know your adversary.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, but I thought that when Denzel just sat down, because so, okay, what happened is when after the carnage, he hits his watch, doop, then he
Mhm.
looks over, then he
Mhm.
walks over to Slavia and sits down beside him, like a little kid, and had that conversation with him. Like, okay, that shows the ruthlessness that's really in him, but it's not personal. This is business.
This
That
is
is business.
business. This is
The
Yeah.
the other
choices.
thing
Yeah.
too, when he sat down after he checked the time, right? Um, I don't know if you guys caught it, but he said, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
He
Oh, I
said,
didn't catch that. Yeah.
yes. Then he goes on to what Phil said was like, you really did this for 98. You gave up your life for $9,800. Like that don't even make sense. But
Since it doesn't
but,
make sense.
but you only
Hmm.
got about 30 more seconds left. So
Because
sorry.
Yeah, that was when.
your heart's beating fast to keep up. You're about to bleed out.
And you're going to
You're going to
drown.
suffocate. Yeah, you're going to. Yeah.
Sorry.
You're going to drown in your blood. That
Just
was
know
my
exactly how he's
thing.
going to
That
die.
was yours,
I,
Cheryl.
and that was mine when he sat down, because I remember him sitting down and he puts his arms around his legs and he looks at him. He says, and then he starts telling him what is happening to him, like breaking it down to his body medically. This is what's happening to you. And then he starts speaking seconds. And he says, and think you did all of this over $9,800.
Yep.
And then he said one thousand or 26,000 or 27. He
Yep.
did it into the 30 seconds, and then the guy died.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
they went to the next scene. I was like,
Fade
dang,
away.
that was deep. It fade away. That was deep.
The
So
the Cheryl, last thing when you said so after that, right?
mhm.
I got a note here that he went to sleep.
Yes, that was. Oh
The
my
next scene,
goodness.
after killing Slavi and his boys in the restaurant above, or in the space above the restaurant, he took it. I ain't gonna say he took a nap. That would be funny, right? He literally got some sleep because we know he's in the insomnia.
Yes.
He went to sleep. That's
Yes, but
crazy.
you helped me connect because I really wasn't connecting the symbolism of that, but the fact that he couldn't sleep because he wasn't being himself. And now he became free, and he's like, "Well, dag, I can get some sleep now because I've taken the people. I have used my skills, and I can go to sleep." And I just thought that was so weird because you're right. That's right. He went to sleep. He was all wrapped up in the blankets. And I think he washed up, and then he went to sleep.
Went to sleep.
That's Thank you, Carlos, because I remember seeing it, but I wasn't connecting it to the fact that he was like, "I got that out my system, so I
Yep.
can go to sleep now."
Yep.
That's amazing. So, but let's talk about how it went into some of the other. Then he was free. Then he's like, okay, I'm gonna help everybody.
Oh
So
yeah.
then with the young man, I can't remember his name, the Hispanic young
The
man
guy
who
who's trying to
was
be the
security
security
guard.
guard.
Route.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he
Route.
quits, and then the mother needs his help because
Yep.
of the he gets the police officers. And I think even before then he was dealing with the guy who comes in to rob the Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes and gets the girl. You could just see he's like, I'm just gonna start helping everybody now. He
Yeah,
got the ring.
you missed it. He went. He said, He went and got I love how he went down the line to get the right hammer. He said, "Oh, I'm gonna get this hammer. This hammer." It's like, it's like this hammer.
Not that one. This one right. This
This
is the
the hammer I'm
perfect
going to
one.
take to handle that problem.
Mm.
You talk about the opposite of James Bond, the
Yeah.
opposite of he used every household gadget there was to kill
Yes.
somebody. I think that's important too.
Yep.
And the foreshadowing, because they talked about that. Think about the foreshadowing of the cement from in the very beginning when he was taking the cement to the guy. I had said to Phil last night, in the very beginning of the movie, when the first scene in the diner, that Herald newspaper truck
Yeah.
comes through and the guy's delivering the newspapers. And then later in that same time period is when the Herald newspaper truck comes and blocks, and they're not able to see him
Oh,
in
I
the
missed it.
yeah.
That is so right.
I was like, oh my gosh, I get it now. And
Epiphany.
it blocks it. And so there's all these little tidbits that you miss when you don't see it the first few times, right? But
Well,
yeah, there was
like Lo said, when you look at it for entertainment, opposed to look at it for editing or
mhm,
conversations like this, then
mhm.
it takes on a whole new meaning.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's whole new meeting. So no, so then it, but I what about the cops? I guess let's talk about the cops maybe
Mhm.
because there were so many bad cops recognized in this movie. And I
Mhm.
know we have bad cops, but they did play a lot. I mean, because there were the bad cops that took the money from the lady's restaurant. Then
Yep.
there were the ones who were supporting all the Russians.
Mhm.
But Phil, what is your thought on that?
Well, it's. I don't think. I mean, I remember the Justice Department had a big investigation. Almost every major city, the Justice Department had to go in. Not major, even some small ones. That's why the Justice Department have a unit to look for public corruption. And I
Mhm.
remember Boston having a big major corruption problem. So I don't think it was taken. I don't think it was overly
Okay.
unrealistic
Yeah.
because the factually,
Yeah.
L.A., New York, that's why the Justice Department have a public corruption unit
Mhm.
for these. So I don't. So you asked my take on it. I don't see it was taking liberty that it was just so many of them. It's
Yeah.
just so happened is even the police officer at the end when he finally gave up the thumb drive with all the information, he
Mhm.
said, "I used
Mhm.
to be a good cop. I used to be
Yeah.
a good cop,"
Yeah.
and so yeah, it makes a difference. And they always
Yeah.
admonish police officer, it's the first step, then it's all over with. So don't
Yeah.
take that first step because trying to reel it back in doesn't happen.
And I
Yeah.
would add too, Cheryl,
Mhm.
if you actually, watching enough TV, and if anytime you're dealing with mafia, it doesn't matter
Mhm.
Italian, Black, Russian.
Mm-hmm.
This called a mafia because they have a conglomerate. It's big. It's a lot of money, and bad things flowing through that system. You got to have help. You
Yeah.
got to have somebody on your side.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna, you're gonna have a movie with some huge Russian mafia leader, then you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have some crooked cops. So I'm with Phil. I don't think it was anything egregious about it. I think it matched the story, and it was just part of what the Equalizer needed to be.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And,
So yeah.
and just to put a finer point on it, I mean, you name any organization is going to reflect society. And so any profession, judges, teachers, lawyers, police officers, surgeons, you name it, there's a certain percentage that's going to be corrupt. I mean, that's just, human nature. So it's just human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like, if you think about it, he had the symbolism of the bad cops from the city perspective. And then in Equalizer 2, he had the bad law enforcement from a more federal perspective. So I guess he's showing it from both angles.
It's not just local.
It ain't just local.
Yeah.
It ain't just state local police, believe me.
Crime is not local.
Yeah.
Not just local.
Yeah.
So no, but I love how he took out the cops, though. In the he didn't take them out, but he put them in their place, the ones who were taking the money from the restaurant. I was just go ahead.
That was funny. They listened to him. They say, well, yeah. And even when the one police officer he broke his arm as he was walking out, he said, giving that money back. He said, "Damn, giving that money back is harder than taking a beating."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He said that. So yeah, but look, at least they listened.
They didn't want him coming back.
Listen to him. They learned that they weren't stupid because he took them out so easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, this fool. Yeah, he's about his business. We're gonna get his money back and
absolutely. Yeah. You saw him. He checked the cops, got them squared away, and the next thing you know, the next scene they coming back
out the restaurant,
back in the restaurant, giving the money back.
Yeah,
or coming out of the restaurant after giving the money back.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things, again, these quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time something like this happens with these with the criminals, when this Equalizer guy just shows up, they always ask, "Who are you?
Who are you?"
Yes, that is true. Who are you? Because the guy, when he was barely breathing, said that.
When Daniel said, he said, "You're the second person to ask me that question today." Like, oh,
who are you? It's in part 2 as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yep. But think about it in the end with the Equalizer 1, the guy says, "Who are you?" And he says, "Everyone wants to know." Because when he's listening to light back and forth on, and like, but you're about to find out who I am. But no, you're right. And that takes me back to probably the most important quote of this movie is the scene between Teddy and Denzel in the restaurant when Teddy has called in his other crew because he's like, these guys can't handle it. Let me bring in the other people.
Yep.
And he's like, "I'll take care of him. Me and my men will take care of him." And then he's sitting there, and then Denzel brings the guy's glasses saying he won't be back. Yep. So Carlos, I know you love this line because I've heard you and Reggie talk about this quote. So I'm going to let you speak about the quote from this particular conversation.
What's the quote, Cheryl?
Oh, when he says,
"What do you see?
What do you see when you look at me? What do you see when you look at me?" And then the other one is the if you play in the rain, you're only going to get mud.
Exactly.
So people pray for rain, but they don't like to deal with the mud.
Yeah, that's right. People pray for rain, but they don't like to deal with the mud. Yes, those are the quotes from that scene.
Well. I call that. I got my little notes say seminal moments. For me, that's when these things happen, and like when you leave that, you like, yeah, this is why I watched this movie. This is what I needed to happen. But look, the reality is that they met earlier, right? So
yes,
it's almost like if you go back, you can talk Heat, the movie Heat. When
Denzel,
I'm sorry, Louis and Denzel, when Al
Robert
Pacino
De Niro
and Robert De Niro talk to each other
in that movie.
That is
That's
so
right.
important. So to me, in this movie, they had the initial conversation when he was faking like he was a cop, right? And he knocked on Denzel's door and started asking questions about what happened in the club. But this one was the real meeting, and it was exactly like you said. So what Denzel did was, what did he do? He literally broke down that man's life,
He sure did.
broke that
He was,
man, and he was how do you know all this about me? And you can see, if you watch it, you see Teddy's lip quiver.
oh wow!
Yes,
I will go back and watch for
Yeah, you
that.
gotta make me go back to the loads.
he is trying to not show any emotion, right?
Yes.
But he's, I think, like I just said, in his head, he was like, who are you? Who is this guy? How do you know these things about me?
Yeah.
And and so Teddy tries to play it off, and like, Denzel basically trying to tell him, um, I'm not like you because I'm actually worse than you.
Right. You're not even on my
Actually,
level. Because he said,
I actually
I'm
love
giving you
people.
I'm
I
giving
don't
you an
love your kind of
opportunity.
people though.
Right. I'm giving you opportunity to walk away. Shut down your
Again,
operation and go.
yo, that's crazy.
And he like
And Cheryl,
it,
right before that, so Teddy's sitting down at his table. The guy, like you said, his people that he called in to help,
Hmm.
he's like, that guy had just said, we're gonna find him. We're going
Hmm.
to find him. And then Mr. McCall walks in. He walks in. We don't even need you anymore, sir. Headhunter, we don't need you anymore. I'm right here. Now
yeah,
what you gonna do about it?
that was great. And I like I said, when he broke down the line, and then he then did a Freud on him. Said,
Yeah.
some people don't know, but I think that little boy had his friends come in because he couldn't. He
No, he
finally
said, I
broke
think the little
down.
boy did it. I
Yeah,
think
the
the
little
little
boy
boy did it.
called him in. And that little
Hmm.
boy just couldn't take the fact that this man was so gracious. And he might turn his back on him again. So
Yeah.
he totally broke down. I know who you are, but you
Hmm.
don't know who I am.
Yep.
Out of all your resources, and that's right there when Teddy he should have known better right then. Like, this is a different type of fool.
Yep.
This is a
Why am I
different
going to
type of
mess with
fool.
him?
Well,
Right.
Hmm.
well, he knew that too, though. Like, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. Teddy's a brilliant
He was
criminal.
smart. He
Like,
was
he's
brilliant. Yeah.
incredible. So
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
I'm over here thinking, like, first of all, I think Teddy's a punk, right? Like,
Yeah.
here's why. Like, you just walked to that man's house and met him face to face. Now you were like, you don't want to just kill somebody like right there, and you don't know if he's the actual culprit of what happened at the restaurant. But he
Mhm.
literally let him, like, he saw him back at the, like you talked about with the truck at the diner.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like, Denzel walked out of there, looked at y'all, took pictures of you, and y'all let him go.
Yeah.
Teddy, you're a punk. You're a punk. So then he
He
says,
was.
he
Yeah.
says we gotta plan this thing out. We gotta, hit him where it hurts. And that's when we get into the next scenes and stuff. But
Well, go ahead. Go. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Teddy was a planner. Teddy wasn't dumb. He knew he
No.
needed his entire team of professionals to get
Hmm.
Mr. McCall. That's why I called him a
Yeah.
punk. Like, you so tough with all your tattoos and all of that. You got this
mhm.
regular Joe Blow guy right here. Won't you, like, meet him where he at, one on one,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because he didn't. He had to then still go get the kids at the Home Depot.
Yeah,
Even when he was
he
like,
had to
I'm
use
going to get
hostage.
these
Yeah,
people,
he had
he
to use
still used the
hostage. Yeah.
hostages, yeah, to rope him in because he was ready. He's like, come on, let's do it together. Because Denzel was getting ready to go and just fight Teddy.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you're right,
well,
Teddy is a punk.
well,
Yeah.
remember he said brick by brick, person by person, I'm gonna basically take your whole enterprise down. So, but I actually think he actually planned for them to use. He's such a planner, McCall,
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't. Well, put it this way, it didn't show in the movie that he was phased when they called and said, "Hey, they got us. What's going on? They got us. They said you need to come into the building." He said, "All right, meet you there." And he just started. To me, I think they made a mistake. But okay, I know this place. I know the exits. I know the entry points. I know everything about the place. And for them to take them down there, I think that was again the not understanding their adversary.
Yeah,
He's always 2
absolutely.
steps ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then go ahead, Cheryl. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. And then
No,
what?
I mean, we were rolling on to,
Yeah.
at the end of the movie, for him to use the basic, use salt and pepper to, to kill somebody, to
Exactly.
use concrete, to use barbed wire, to use a staple, to use
The
a
staple gun,
air
yeah.
gun or what, nail gun, use a
Nail
nail
gun,
gun,
nail gun.
and and then we got to find out the security guard names. When he looked, they started low. Remember when he killed Teddy, the security guard was shot in the leg and he was on the ground. And so
Yes.
the first nail went through Teddy, hit the wall because he thought he shot. He thought he actually shot. He didn't pull the trigger. He was going to shoot. And he looks up and the camera starts low and then comes up and the window is cascading with water and he sees his silhouette and he looks over and that's when Denzel does the final shot and kills him. He looks like say, "Oh my God, who is this man?
Who are
Again,
you?
who are you?
Who are you?"
Exactly. And I love the music and the whole slow walking. I kind of think that's Antoine Fuqua's thing, like Spike Lee has his thing.
Absolutely. With the
Because when I
camera,
think about Training Day and when I
Yeah.
think about even in Olympus Has Fallen, I think
Mhm.
about Gerard Butler, all of that kind of slow down motion
Yeah.
is his little theme thing, but
Absolutely.
or his thing that he does in his movies. But yeah, I love that when he came in and he had the gun. But I also love that it wasn't so fake where he couldn't get injured, because he really
Mhm.
had to battle that
Mhm.
last guy that he fought before he killed Teddy.
Sure.
That fight was hard. You could see
Sure.
that the wind was taken out of him when he finished with that one. Like,
Sure.
I just barely made it out of that fight.
Well, and before
But
that, remember he
yeah.
got shot in the leg. He got
Yeah, he
shot
was
in the
already
leg in the
injured. Yeah.
restaurant.
He was
Mhm.
hobbling.
When
Yeah.
the guy he
Mhm.
said, "You ain't no construction." He said, "They're only going to bring you." He said, "You ain't no construction. Those hands are too nice."
They're too
So
nice. They're
when he
too
knocked the
clean.
gun out the way, the gun went off and boom.
And hit him in his
You're right,
leg.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
It's not one of these things where you can go through all that and don't have no scratch on you.
Mhm.
Yeah, like you felt about Haley Berry and I forgot what that was, and John Wick. Phil didn't like that part of Haley
She
Berry
went through
in
that
John
whole
Wick.
battle scene and her hair got fluffed up a little bit. Like,
Exactly.
"Oh, you gotta beat up a little bit."
That's
But
Halle Berry, Phil. Leave her alone. That's how she's
I
supposed to look.
digress. I digress.
Anyway, so we need to move into Equalizer 2, which was a little bit of a different plot. It same, of course, Vigilante, but I love how that begins with him on the train, because
Mhm.
in the one in Boston, in the first one, it began with the slow walk into the slow camera moving back into his apartment, I guess, introducing you to his OCD, because everything was meticulous. And I didn't understand, though, in that very first scene, why they had the alarm going off and he was in the bathroom cutting his hair. I was like, why does the alarm going off? Why not just he turned the alarm off? Is it to show that he was up before his alarm was on? And maybe I'm
I don't.
overthinking it, but I just thought that was weird. But in the second one, they had the train, and that whole like first scene, there was a quote that I had copied down from that very first scene. It was talking about I don't know if you remember, Carl. I gotta go find my quotes.
I
It's
got two quotes here. One is I kind of use the quotes to spark the conversation. Sure,
Go ahead.
I have a question for you really quick about
sure.
Equalizer 1. Equalizer 1. I'm not sure. I want to see if you guys caught this. We talking symbolism and things that, what's the word? Foreshadowing, like things
Foreshadowing.
hmm
that
Yeah,
happen
yeah,
early in the movie and then again later on. So in Equalizer 1, if you recall, when it's right at the beginning of the movie, when we see that he's working at Home Mart, he has the young guys with him, and they call him pops, and
yeah.
he says he's with the Pips, exactly, right?
hmm
hmm
Right.
hmm
So at the end of the movie, when you get to the Home Mart scene again, did you realize that they played Midnight Train to Georgia?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I didn't. I
Yes.
didn't.
Yes. They did when that's the song that
Yes,
he put on to distract them. I
exactly.
did.
He's one of
Thank
the
you for
Pips.
remembering that. Thank you,
So
Carlos. Yes.
everybody in
Uh-huh.
the Walmart knew that one of the Pips was back to save them.
I like
Yes.
that. I like that. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is
So
cool. I
what?
like that. I like that
What?
symbolism. You
Absolutely.
also you also reminded me about how in the end of the movie, because going back to
Hmm.
the book that was on the counter when he was looking at the computer and he had started the whole, I guess, little connection of people could reach out to him for help. At least that's the way I was looking at it. He had the computer and it was like it had something at the
Oh.
top about, is anyone need help out there, and then they were like, can you help me, and he said he started typing yes. And so that to me, Phil said to me, he says, sure, that's what symbolized it to him, there was going to be a part two. But the
Oh.
book that was on the table was The Invisible Man. That
Oh.
was the book that was on the
Okay.
counter
Okay.
on his table when he was on the computer.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, because he's,
Wow.
no one knows who he is. So
Ooh.
again, just kind of going back to that symbolism. So
I
thank
need to
you.
go back and watch that
Yeah.
again. Sure. I'm sitting over here the whole time and I'm like, so part two, we know it's on now. He is now
Yeah.
the equalizer. We're gonna continue to see him help people, right?
Yes,
Right.
help him.
In his own
Mhm.
special way, right? And
Very
In
I'm
his
like,
own
special.
I'm
special
gonna ask
way.
you guys, like, how does people know to contact him? I got the question right here in front of me. How do people? You just answered that question, Cheryl. So you
Well,
did
I
some
think
fine research there, Cheryl.
well, I also think he also just did things because in the first scene of Equalizer 2, when he
Mhm.
helps the young girl, um, it brings her back to her mom.
Mhm.
That's someone who I don't even think she asked for that help. I think he also helps people just based on what he sees. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
for his own benefit because he didn't want to lose the bookstore. And he's like, he apparently she was going to sell the store because she couldn't get her daughter back. And he went and rescued her daughter. So that
uh,
I thought that was kind of cute. Mhm.
Cheryl. I don't even know what I'm looking at. Then I need to watch. I totally. I'm trying. This is this is crazy, Cheryl. So you're telling me I'm gonna make this fun? No question about it. So you're telling me. So that's why I was like, why is there this special connection at the bookstore? And he kept,
Hmm.
winking at the little girl. I'm like, oh,
That's
so
the girl he saves in the very beginning. So in the very beginning of the movie, when he's on the train,
She's
remember
stupid.
the
I'm so
Most,
disappointed in myself, guys.
yeah, so
no,
stupid.
you don't have to be disappointed because that's
She's a
what
good
that's
host.
what
She's a good host. That's what a
This
good
is
host
so
supposed to do.
crazy.
Thank you, sweetie. Um, but yeah, so yeah, that because he's sitting in the train and the little girl is there and the father is sitting in front of her, and then he goes and walks away,
Yeah.
and then he goes in the back and they have that whole issue.
Okay.
And that was one of the
Oh,
quotes. That was the quote
yes.
that he says to the man, pain. There's all
There are
wait, let me
two
see.
kinds of pain: pain that hurts, pain that alters.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. And
Yes.
the pain, the pain, you can make a choice. Basically, he was telling that man, you can make a choice. I can give you a pain that hurts, like I just did to your brother and your friends over here, or I can give you pain that's going to alter.
Yeah.
And so your pain to alter is I'm going to have to take your daughter back from you, and you're just going to have to take the heat of whatever that hurts you
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
you, the baby going back to her
well,
mother.
remember
Mhm.
he even said it. He didn't really. He was just trying to hurt the mother. He really didn't have any. He didn't care any way which other about the daughter. He
Yeah.
was just
Mhm.
trying to hurt the mother, and that's even you can maybe justify it a little bit if he's like, well, that's my baby, and I really care about her, and that was my motive. But to alter your own child's life so irreparably, and then just to do it out of spite for the mother, that's just a level. Just a totally different
That's
level of
terrible.
cruelty.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So no,
He
I thought that was kind of cool. Go ahead.
in that
Sorry,
same
Carlos.
conversation with that guy before he
hmm
talked about the two types of hurt. Um, what I thought was cool. I just love Denzel's arrogance. I should also state, I don't know if you guys know that Denzel looks like my father.
No,
You know what? You are right. You are right.
You
I
don't
didn't
understand,
see.
like every time. That's another reason why I love the dude, because he looks like McDuffie Brown.
That's
Yes.
pretty
He,
cool.
he has the same, like, it looks like, when Denzel, he was always wearing big clothes, so it almost looks like he's bow-legged. I don't think he really is, but his clothes are baggy. But
Mm-hmm.
he's got the same gait, the same walk. When they do close-ups on Denzel, you look at his hair. So I remember my father had, like, I got curly hairs thinning out and all that, but Pops had curly hair. It looks just like Denzel's. Pops has a widow's peak. He had a widow's peak that looks just like Denzel's.
That's pretty cool.
Unbelievable. So I'm sitting there just looking at this stuff. So anyway,
So
That's
that's
pretty cool.
probably why Reggie has that. But Reggie probably thinks the
probably,
same thing. Oh,
probably,
yeah, because
That's
probably,
pretty
he
cool.
we
really likes
definitely say that's
Denzel.
Pops every
Mm-hmm.
time. Like, dude,
Mm-hmm.
this is crazy. And certain things or scenes that he does, like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
that's my father right there. But anyway, I love McCall's arrogance too. Like, we see
Mm-hmm.
his confident side too, and this was in that conversation with the guy on the train
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
before the pain quote. He says, "What? Let me look at my notes here." He says, "A man." He said, "Men like him would think that." So Denzel is telling him the story about this little girl that's missing and it needs to go back to her mom. He's saying all these things, and then the guy replies back saying something like, um, basically saying, I understand what you're saying now, but you don't want to mess with me because I got my boys with me and we can take care,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Denzel says something like, in response to what he was saying, men like him would think that. So
Yep.
I'm like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, he has no idea what's about to happen. Didn't you see part one?
I gotta. What do you guys think about the fact of product placement with Lyft? That he was a Lyft driver. I'm
Oh,
always
yes.
think about product placement. He was a Lyft driver and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
That's
Well,
how you got.
the
Yeah.
other part in that too is, yes, obviously that they paid for Denzel's salary. We know that. That's how it works.
Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
that was his tool to
To
stay
get around the
connected with
city,
the
yeah.
world, to get
Mm-hmm.
around
Mm-hmm.
and help people. Let's just keep saying
Mm-hmm.
he helps people. He's
Helps
looking
people,
for
right?
reasons to help
To
people,
help
and what
people.
better place to do that, to get people's different stories. Just like back on HBO, Taxi Cab Confessions. You guys remember that?
Yeah. I remember that.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. You're
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because
Yeah.
they were showing all the good things that were happening, the bad things,
yeah.
like the gentleman who was struggling with his, I guess, alcoholism or his addiction of something.
Mhm.
And then the scene on that was crazy. The scene with the young girl, the intern who was beat up or
Ooh.
raped or whatever happened to her.
Mm.
And he goes back to take care of those kids.
Yep.
No, that
That
was
that
no.
that was
That
funny. Hmm.
scene,
Hmm.
that's so I like how he
Mm.
sliced the dude up with the black car. I never saw this before.
Ooh,
He took the
slice.
he sliced him up
With the black card.
the black card. I guess it was Amex black card.
Yep.
Hmm. No, that was cool. And then he took the young man who didn't have enough strength, I guess, to fight against these kids who were using him. And he's like, "Give me your left hand." He said, "Which hand do you write with?" He was like, "My right." He said, "Give me your left hand." What you gonna do? Give me your left hand. And I need you, before he does it, he said, "I'm gonna need you to give me a 5-star rating
There it
now."
is. I
It
got
came
You
through
give me
too.
the
You
left.
know what I'm saying? When he got in the lift, it came through.
$16 and 5 stars.
Right, it came through.
And who you giving the 5 stars to? To Amy.
Amy. He said, "What's her name?" And he didn't know. He said, "Her name is Amy.
Amy.
Now give me your left hand."
Mhm.
I got that highlighted right here, Cheryl.
Oh my gosh, I love that line. I love that.
Yep.
So, dag, I missed the quote. Okay, we're just going to jump back
Mhm.
to one real quick. The quote when Teddy goes and he beats up Little John. When they go to the Irishman and then they beat
Yeah.
him up really bad, and
Yes.
then he was like, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing, man?" He says, "It's a message. It says I'm here."
Yes, sir. Got that one too, Cheryl.
Yeah. It's a
My
message.
notes are
I'm
a little
here.
disorganized, but I have it.
Mine are too. That's why I said, oh, I gotta go back and say this one.
I'll do
But
better
you know,
next time.
but you know what I didn't in the very first movie, they talked about they had this quote, the two most important days in your life are the
Hmm.
day you were born and the day you find out why.
That was a quote at the beginning of the movie
At
before
the
we
very
saw this.
beginning of the movie,
Absolutely.
yes. But they didn't have a quote in the second movie.
No, they
So
didn't.
I just thought that was interesting. But I love the quotes
But we
because I
already
never,
so with that one, sure, we already knew once we you don't need that again in part two. We know who the
Right.
guy
that's
is,
true.
Right. It's
That's
a
true.
right?
continuation. Right.
Yeah, yeah. We don't even need that anymore. Like we know who the equalizer is. Let him be who he is, and let's see how he helps some more people. How about that?
Yeah, because you're right. It's kind of the symbolism of he found out who he was,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So
Great
yeah,
point.
so no, that was good.
Great
So
point.
okay, so we talked about all the adventures. It took me a little bit though, of the Lyft driving. I mean, it took me a little bit though to kind of connect. It wasn't until the end that I connected how he was helping the older man, how he
Mm-hmm.
stayed
Sam,
in his mind, and I guess he brought his sister. That was his sister that he brought back together to him in the
correct,
end, right?
correct.
Yeah. So I just that one took me a little bit. I didn't catch that one quick off, but in the initial storyline, I think he was just helping, he was doing his thing to help people. But
Mm-hmm.
there was something that happened in two that kind of took him to another level. And
Oh,
that was the loss of his
Barbara.
very
Yeah.
close friend.
Yeah.
And
Barbara. Susan. Susan.
Susan.
Susan.
Susan, the
Mm-hmm.
loss of Susan. And another thing that that some, and wasn't Antoine Fuqua said it, but some other writer or reviewer said about the first movie was that how did Antoine Fuqua get Bill Pullman to be in that movie? And he, he's a big star on his own, and
Yeah,
he's like he had this very small little part in
yeah.
a Denzel Washington movie. But I guess that's everyone wants to be. That shows you the power that Antoine
Sure,
Fuqua has.
sure.
So, but yeah, I think when Susan was killed, it was just interesting. What did you all think about that plot twist? Because I at first when I watched it the very first time,
Mm-hmm.
I was not clued in to who the bad guy was in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Were you guys? How did that affect you, Carlos?
That's a good point, Cheryl. Like I said, I'm watching these things originally from the surface level, right? Just
Mm-hmm,
for the fun factor. But
mm-hmm,
you're absolutely right. This is Denzel. You're always gonna get a great product, a great story. It's
mm-hmm.
not just gonna be him equalizing. It's gonna be more to it than that. So yeah, I was surprised on the twist. I think it was a
Yes.
great twist. But you're right. So I think you would have to do something like that so we can delve a little bit more into who Mr. Robert McCall is, right? So
Yeah.
you getting these. So we saw her, we saw a few of those post personal conversations in Equalizer one, but here they got a little deeper. You hear the name of his wife. You see her name
Mm-hmm.
is Vivian, right?
Mm-hmm,
They're having a
mm-hmm.
conversation. By the way, they had soup in episode one and they had soup in episode two again. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what that's about. They had
Yeah.
soup together.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think they're in the bathroom or maybe in the kitchen in there, and she starts to talk about Vivian again, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
see him
Mm-hmm.
get a little choked up about it, and as a matter of fact, it was
Birthday. It was Vivian's birthday.
Vivian's
Mm-hmm.
birthday, the day that he beat up the kids, the young guys, the rich kids.
Oh, it
Same day,
was.
same day. Yes,
Yes.
sure was. So I didn't
Yes.
realize that until you get to
Mm-hmm.
connect the dots. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a necessary. Not only was it unexpected, but it was a necessary plot twist too. Again, to figure out who more about the character himself.
Yeah. It just made me I think it was just really hurtful. I hated to see him lose someone who, because he lost Vivian and now he lost his one friend who
The only
he
friend he
really
had.
could
Mm-hmm.
trust.
Yeah,
And she says that you don't even connect that piece because
yeah,
I mean when I watched it the first time, I didn't even think that she was going to die. But she said
right,
she's like, I'm the only friend you got. So
right.
and then she ends up dying after that. So
Yeah,
that just was kind of sad. But yeah, and it's interesting, back when this movie was made in 2019, was The Mandalorian started, Phil, in 2019? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think it had begun, because he was, I think, Pascal, I can't think of his name right now, the gentleman who plays the
Mando.
his Mando.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I think he did this movie prior to him becoming the big star. Everyone knows him as the Mandalorian now. I don't know. Do you watch the
No, I
Mandalorian,
don't.
Carlos?
No.
Okay, that's a Star Wars
Yeah, I know
universe
what it is.
sort
Yeah.
of show, and yeah, but he's a big star because of that movie now,
Right.
and not that he wasn't before, but when I see him now, that's all I think about. I'm like, you're the Mandalorian. You're not supposed to be this person. You're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be on the other side, But yeah, yeah. So what with the plot in hand, though, I thought that was clever. I thought it was something that was unique, but I loved how it broke it down, how he figured it out. Um,
Oh, wow.
but yeah, like wow, he connected it as soon as he had the thing in that car when the guy tried to beat him up. But think about how smart he is, though. When he was in the car, he was like, "So whose birthday is it? Someone's birthday? Yes, it's my daughter's." And then he's going on and on, and you can see his brain working.
Yeah.
And then the guy moves over to the side in the back of the car, and then he's like, "I know." But that whole scene, that was a good fight scene. Because think about that fight scene. I love fight scenes. I love gun scenes, fight scenes. Phil always says I'm violent because I just
She's
love to
violent.
see all that.
Violent.
She's violent. She beats me up, Carlos.
What?
Yeah.
I think it runs in the family, Phil.
Yeah.
You see that every day. What?
So but I thought that was amazing. The whole what do they call the choreographing of it all, with him in the car and how he was driving and fighting at the same time, and how he got around getting killed. But then the hurt, you could see the hurt that he had, and knowing that was the wake up call for him. He knew that it was the guy. So
right.
But
the espionage was the plot about the espionage and all the intrigue behind it. Again, we just said, it's not just dirty cops, right? We just said, at every level of society, there are people who abuse their position for financial gain. And there we go.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, it's that thing right there.
And it doesn't care about anybody else but themselves. So, okay. So I don't know. Are there any other highlights from Equalizer 2 that you guys think that we're missing?
No, I think we're good. I'm looking forward to Equalizer 3.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I was going to close out with kind of, unless there is something else in your notes, Carlos, that you think
I only have one other thing, and this is, and it's I'm not going to have all the exact quotes, but
just let it flow, bro.
Sure. When he goes back, Dave is his. So you got Susan and you got Dave. So Dave was his partner, right?
Yep.
Is that the Mandalorian guy?
Yes.
Dave is the Mandalorian. Okay. So he goes to Dave's house, and this is after he's figured it all out, and he had taken the phone from the guy that's driving, in the car scene you just mentioned. And then they have their conversation, and then they go outside, and he sees all of Dave's guys. The whole crew is still around. Dave has already lied to him, says, "Yeah, I hadn't seen those guys in years," right? So then he tells them, he says, basically what he says is, there's, life happens. But at the end of the day, I'm going to kill all of y'all. And my only disappointment is that I can't do it twice. You remember that?
Yes. I do. You are right. I wish I had written that down. You're right. I can't do it twice.
Listen, I know the timing of that scene on the movie. So when it's on TV, I know it's at like 91 minutes into the movie.
You stupid. You got it down. Memorize you got a timestamp.
Watch the whole thing. I'm like, I got to turn Equalizer 2 back at about an hour and a half in so I can see that scene. So, to me, so powerful. And the guy, he always keeps his word. That's what I love the most about
yes,
him.
Yes.
He's the original. Well, he took "I'll Be Back" to a different level.
Yes, he did. He took "I'll Be Back" in a different level. You are absolutely right. But what we did talk about was the young man, how he really saved. So we can
Miles.
say the connections to both movies is that he saved Alina in the first one, and then the second one he saved the young man. I can't think of his name. That's so sad.
Miles. His name is Miles.
Miles, like Miles Davis. I should know that, Miles. And I love at the end how Miles has he's drawing the picture of his superhero, and then she says, tell me about him, and he says, well, he drives an Impala, and it's basically Denzel,
right?
And he done got the girl. He's like Denzel. He's like Robert McCall's helping me out now. I done got a girl too. He got me in private school, and now I got the girl.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot about Miles. No, that was a great character, because it was a great character building where they showed how he was helping Miles. I loved how it was showing him help a young Black man become his better self.
Absolutely.
And so that was also a great part of this movie that I definitely don't want to forget about touching on. Sure. But yeah, so going now to the Equalizer 3, what are your predictions? I've kind of talked about one prediction at connecting your thing. Maybe he has a patisserie. I know that he is in Europe, and it's something about the mafia. But I think the most sweetest thing that I know about this movie is that him and Dakota Fanning are coming back together. Dakota Fanning is in it. Yeah, so Man on Fire. And so, but when I saw that Dakota Fanning was in the movie with him, the first thing I thought is that I hope he's not going to die, because they say this is the final chapter. I'm not trying to feel, it's like you always trying to take someone out, Cheryl.
She'll kill you quick.
The violence kicking in again, Phil.
She'll kill. She'll say, "Oh, you're gonna die!" Like, God damn, the movie's not his
I didn't say he's going to die. I said, I hope he doesn't die. I said, because Dakota Fanning.
No, I'm talking about different people as we go through.
Oh, as we go through things. Yeah, I know who's going to die. You can tell.
Who's going to die.
He did. He did.
That's kind of like the Star Trek effect. Eddie Murphy says it in Boomerang, that the people, you're like, that person's not going to live. They're going to die.
Who's Ensign Johnson? Yeah, he's going to die.
He's going to die.
But Cheryl, back to I think it's two predictions, and this is kind of cheating. Mm-hmm. Either he is going to die, or he's going to be turned like a mentor, and to turn over the franchise of the Equalizer to someone else.
Oh,
someone else is going to be introduced. He's going to be kind of like a mentor, but I give it 60-40. 60%, I think he's going to die. 40%, I think he's going to be a mentor.
That's true. There's another story plot out there where it's one we just watched recently, where there was someone who had a very senior sort of role, and then they were transitioning it to another person. Gosh, I wish I could remember things, but you're right. That's actually a really interesting concept. What
about you, Los? What you think?
Yeah.
Man, this is a tough question, because like I said, like we're gonna do another. We'll probably talking about doing another recap. I'm not gonna do anything on that recap until I see the movie 10 times. Like we're gonna sit. I'm gonna sit. I'm like, man, that was better than 1 and 2, but I can't even tell you what the hell happened. So look, going back to 1 and 2, Sam says, one of Sam's quote, the old guy, he says, every day you remember less, or something like every day you basically you remember less. This is what Sam said. So that's me.
Oh yeah, that's true. I love, you're right. Sam has some really good quotes.
Oh yeah,
there was one that was really cute. Was talking about you always want to. It was about the toothbrush. Oh, here it is. Always be nice to anyone who has access to your toothbrush.
Absolutely.
When I saw that, I looked at Los. I was leaning back. I looked at Cheryl like, "Hey, baby, you been?"
Hey, I love you. I love you.
You never know, but that's like a really good quote. I never really thought about that. Anyone could do something crazy to your toothbrush.
So let me see. What can I predict with Equalizer 3? You know what? If we're talking about like, so I don't know. I haven't seen trailers or any type of anything about the movie. I just know it's September 1st. Mm-hmm. I could see him. Man, Denzel don't die in movies. I'm not going there. he don't die in
Yeah,
movies. Like,
is there
I mean, he
any
died
movie
in
where he did die? Yeah, there isn't any.
he died, but it wasn't because somebody killed him. He was just old. I mean not old, but he had made a trek across the country. What's the movie when he's blind?
Eli, the Book of
Book of Eli.
Eli.
Book of Eli.
Uh-huh.
He dies at the end of that, right?
He
That makes sense because he
does.
But
needed
you
to.
know, never see him die though. He was because he didn't he wasn't he quoted wasn't he
He's reciting the entire
reciting the
Bible.
book.
Yeah,
The
I think you're
Bible.
going. I think you've earned your death after doing that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's different than. And and Denzel is still too young to like die because of old age, and like them skip ahead into the story, to
Yeah.
make him an old man. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to ride on Phil's coattails and say he becomes a mentor. I can't do that. So you know what, Cheryl, I got to think on that one. I don't have an answer for
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I
That's
think we
fair.
just have to wait and see. That's fair.
that.
I am planning to do the recap. I'm actually going. I've gotten my tickets already. I'm going to
Did you
see
really?
it on the 31st. But I did plan on doing a recap on the 2nd. So I don't know if you are going to be able to see it that soon, but we're going to do recap and we're going to do feedback.
Okay.
So we'll have plenty of opportunities to rewatch and to see and to
Okay.
talk about it. But I definitely want to get my first
Yeah.
opinions out there, soon after it comes on. But no, I'm just excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited about
Me
it
too. I'm
coming back.
excited.
That's it right
I'm,
there. That's the
you
story.
know,
Yep. That's it.
that's a story. I'm excited, and
That's it.
I just love. I'm excited anytime that Denzel is able to show his face on screen. He's one of our heroes, and we're just blessed to have him and to be able to. I mean, we've lost so many. We lost Ron Cephas Jones recently. He
Yeah.
definitely was an actor that's is close to my heart.
Mhm.
And Tina Turner is gone. I mean, we've lost so many people over the years, but Ron is just a recent one. So we just got to hold on to Denzel as long as we can have him. And I'm just glad
Absolutely.
that he's still out there doing his work. So,
Yep.
Yep.
and I'm excited to support him. So
Sure
I
thing.
just want to thank you, Carlos. Thank you
Sure.
so much for coming and doing this with me. Thank you, my
No trouble.
sweetheart, for joining and helping me. This is my first journey. The Hot Nerd Network is a network of Sydney's, her network, and I'm just really, I'm love doing this with her and supporting her. So again, if you all like this content, I know there's other content out there on the network. Please like and subscribe. And we just look forward to you participating in future content. And I look forward to the recap that we're going to do on September 2nd. What we're going to send a recap. We're going to be posting a recap as soon after the movie has come out. So please join us with that too. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Take care.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Carlo.